Kahuna here. You know, we've had a lot of people get in ink ask us questions. And the biggest question they ask us is, how much should I tip my artist? Well, stay tuned. The next Blu Collar Ink's going to tell you all about it and give you some practical tips and ideas to consider when you're thinking about tipping your tattoo artist. Check it out. Blu Collar Ink, coming up.
Hey guys, KatieKaz here with Blu Collar Ink. We're back with another session and we're going to talk about another hot topic that you guys wanted to hear more about. Today we're going to talk about tipping your artist. How do you know how much you should tip, even when you should tip your artist those sweet, sweet dollar bills? We got a little girl session going on for you guys today. Making her social media debut is one of Tat-Stories' newest members, Jess. She has plenty of tattoos of her own, and she's going to share some of her opinions, recommendations, and even tat stories with us on today's Blu Collar Ink. So, when it comes to tipping, law of the land, tipping is about location. You want to make sure that you're adhering to the local cultural practices of where you're getting your tattoo. For example, tipping in the U.S. is very common. It's not common in other areas. So you want to make sure you're not making a fool of yourself if you're trying to tip your artist on top of the price of the tattoo. So make sure you do your research first.
Another thing to consider is that in the U.S., it's actually very common for the piece and the price to be shared with the shop that that artist works out of. So if your piece is $200, that isn't all going to your artist. So if you did tip them, that tip would 100% go to your artist. And there's some other things to consider is that factors drive up your tip consideration. And sometimes the biggest question is, how much should I even tip?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All great points. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some more detailed factors about tipping in our next segment. We're going to talk about the professional and artistic factors that go into deciding how much you're going to tip on your piece. So Jess, if you break it down, I think there's two main components to tipping and how to decide, how much should I be tipping my artist? Because the reality is, while tipping is a sign of respect for the artist's expertise and the time they're spending on your skin, it's not mandatory that you have to tip a certain amount. There's two big factors that you can base that tip amount on, if you're tipping in the US or a country that accepts tipping, and that's going to be the professional components and the artistic components of the tattoo. So what do we mean by professional components? Professional components talk about things like, was the artist on time? Were they friendly? Were they professional to work with? Were they clean and willing to work with you? If you're not having a great experience during your tattoo, it is also a customer service industry just like any other, and you can adjust your tip accordingly. The other piece is artistic components. So think a lot about the type of work you're getting. Is it a huge tattoo with a lot of detail, or is it a small little symbol on your finger that's really not going to take a lot of planning on the artist's end? And then obviously there's another component of price, right? Based on the size, complexity, and expertise involved in your tattoo, what does that price range look like? You want to make sure that the larger the price, the larger the piece, likely the more hours your artist is going to spend working on it. You want your tip to reflect that as long as you're getting quality work. And then the last big piece, which is kind of hard because it's not easy to quantify, is how do you feel about that tattoo? When you walk out of that salon or out of that shop, are you proud to show that tattoo off? Can you not wait to run home to your family members and say, hey, look what I got? If that's the type of feeling you're walking out with, that probably reflects a really healthy tip on top of the price of the tattoo.
I think also we should consider your relationship with the artist. A good relationship is really important because that could fuel future art with that artist, especially if you like them. In the US, you should plan to tip. That's our culture. That's what we do. I think a lot of the times is that you should be prepared in advance with the price, and that's going to give you a better determination of what you tip. Really commonly, 20% for your piece, $2,000 and below, might be really good to tip. And it doesn't hurt building that rapport with your artist. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And also what you said about building that relationship with your artist, there's a lot of non-monetary ways you can tip. One thing to consider too, just to back up for a second, is if you're going to get a really large, complex piece, like an entire sleeve or a back tattoo, you want to factor in how many sessions is this going to take. Let's say it's a $1,000 sleeve or a $2,000 sleeve. if you tip all the way up front and that's 1 out of 5 sessions, you're going to run yourself into a $0 bank account pretty quickly. You want to make sure you're thinking about the time and the hours going into each section, or even talk about it with your artist in advance. How do you want to arrange that monetary payment? And you can always tip accordingly to that. And then the other piece is there's non-monetary tipping. So if you have a really good relationship with your artist, like for example, my artist in Chicago has done all my pieces. At this point, I literally text him or call him and we just hang out in the shop, and maybe he's tattooing me at the time. But you can buy your artist lunch. You can provide them with other referrals if you really like their work and you bring a friend into the studio and say, hey, go to this person. They did awesome work on me. That's going to be future business for them, and that also helps to kind of build that relationship. It's not a literal tip, but you're helping them along for the expertise and for the effort they're putting in your tattoo. And then lastly, too, promoting your artist. It's not, again, a dollar tip, but it's a way to show your respect and your appreciation for the work that they did and the relationship you guys have. Taking pictures of your tattoos, putting them online. I know you and I both have pictures of our tattoos on Instagram, tagging your artist, making sure you're building that relationship and continuing to help it grow. That's only going to give you better service in the future, and that's only going to give you a better relationship with what you're paying for your tattoo and how much you're tipping with that particular artist.
So I think one of the best things, Katie, to keep in mind is relationships are key. If you have a really great relationship with your artist, it's going to be way easier to know how to tip and to feel more comfortable. They always leave it to the customer, right? Your artist gives you that option. So you really want to have a good relationship with them because you want to keep coming back. That's the best part about tattoo artists. These are unique people who will give you amazing pieces. So you want to give them what they're worth.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. And I would also say, too, hopefully you find an artist where you feel that connection and you have that awesome relationship. But also keep in mind, tipping is based on the experience that you're receiving, in this case, the product and the service that goes into that product. So make sure that you're really taking into consideration, what was my entire experience with this piece? And don't be afraid to let your tip show that. Of course, like you're saying, you meet an awesome artist, they give you what you want. Tip out the wazoo if you want to, right? If you don't have as great of an experience, keep in mind that this artist has put their time and effort into that piece, and it did take up a portion of their day. I would never say, especially in the US, don't tip at all. But you can let your tip reflect, how you feel walking out of that studio based on the piece and the service that you got.
Absolutely. Well, this was great information. I really learned a lot, and I'm feeling more confident about how I should tip.
Love it.
If you guys enjoyed this content, comment below. Let us know. Did you like it? Also, we're going to have a lot more Blu Collar Ink in the future. And we really want to know, what do you want to hear about? So don't forget to go to Tat-Stories.com and leave us some feedback and tell us, what do you want to hear? What are those burning questions?